Imagine this scene. You walk into a store just to take a quick look. Suddenly, without even realizing it, you walk out with bags in your hands, your credit card maxed out, and that strange feeling of pleasure mixed with guilt. Maybe you've experienced something like this before, but the real question is, what exactly happens in your brain when you overspend? And why can this behavior, seemingly harmless at first, become such a major obstacle to your financial prosperity, especially after the age of 40, when every decision carries even more weight for both the present and the future? From a scientific perspective, overspending is not just a matter of lack of control or weakness of character. Neuroscience research shows that this behavior is closely linked to the way our brain's reward circuits work. When you buy something you want, your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for the feeling of pleasure and satisfaction. This same system is triggered in compulsive behaviors, such as gambling or even chemical addictions. In other words, spending can create a genuine chemical reward that becomes addictive, pushing you to repeat the behavior even when you already know the consequences can be harmful. The problem is that this pleasure is short-lived. The brain quickly gets used to the stimulus and needs more and more to feel the same level of satisfaction. This explains why so many people buy things they don't need, accumulate items they never use, and still continue to feel that emptiness right after each purchase. Overspending stops being a conscious choice and becomes almost automatic, fueled by emotional and social triggers. And the damage caused by this habit goes far beyond the money that leaves your account. We can list some of them to make it clearer. First, the direct financial damage. Overspending compromises your ability to save, invest, and build reserves. After the age of 40, this becomes even more dangerous because the time to rebuild before retirement or financial independence is shorter. Second, the emotional damage. Guilt, anxiety, and stress become constant companions. Every time the bill arrives, you relive the cycle of the euphoria of buying, followed by the heavy weight of payment, both literally and emotionally. Third, the relational damage. How many families end up in conflict because of debt? Arguments between couples, fights with children, silent tensions that corrode the harmony of the home. All of this can originate from out-of-control spending behavior. Fourth, the psychological damage. Over time, a person begins to believe they have no discipline, that they are incapable of changing, which undermines their self-esteem and sense of personal power. This is a critical point, because without self-confidence, prosperity becomes increasingly distant. Fifth, the social damage. Living beyond one's financial means to keep up appearances, to please others, or to fit into imposed standards is like running on an endless treadmill. You never actually get anywhere. You just exhaust yourself and wear out. But if the damages are so many, why do we insist on keeping this pattern? The answer lies, once again, in the brain. Studies show that our limbic system, which is linked to emotions, reacts much faster than the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational part responsible for long-term decisions. This means that at the moment of purchase, emotion usually wins over reason, and we justify it afterward. Examples are everywhere. You've probably heard stories in the media about people who won the lottery and, within a few years, lost everything. There are also celebrities who, despite having million-dollar careers, ended up bankrupt because of an unsustainable lifestyle. These cases stand out because they are extreme, but on a smaller scale, they reflect the same mechanism that affects any of us: spending beyond what is necessary to fill a void that isn't financial but emotional. We are rarely rational when it comes to making decisions about money. Most of our choices are influenced by emotions, cognitive biases, and external pressures. This means that if we don't learn to deal with these triggers, we will always remain trapped in financial pitfalls. Now, I want to propose a few questions for reflection. How many times have you bought something you didn't need just to ease a negative emotion? How many times have you told yourself you deserved that purchase after a difficult day? And how many times, deep down, Did you know that money would have made much more sense if it had been directed toward building your financial security or achieving a greater dream? At the same time, there are very strong reasons to break this pattern and enormous benefits in taking control. When you learn to control your spending impulses, you're not just saving money, you're reclaiming your freedom, your peace of mind, and your confidence. Every time you consciously choose not to overspend, you strengthen your prefrontal cortex, train your discipline, and create room for true prosperity to enter your life. Studies reveal that people who develop simple self-control strategies, such as waiting 24 hours before making an unplanned purchase, are able to drastically reduce impulsive spending and significantly increase their satisfaction with money. That's because the act of waiting breaks the cycle of immediate dopamine and allows logical reasoning to take the lead. In practice, countless stories prove this. You may have read about families who were deeply in debt and, by changing their spending habits, not only got out of the red, but also achieved goals like buying a home, investing in education, or traveling to fulfill long-held dreams. These examples show us that spending less doesn't mean living with less joy. It means living with more awareness and making better choices. The secret of prosperity is not how much you earn, but how much you manage to keep. True wealth is not measured by the size of the car in your garage, but by the peace of knowing you have reserves to face any unexpected event and the freedom to say no when something doesn't make sense. So, how can you turn this awareness into practice in your daily life? First, by recognizing the triggers that lead you to overspend: boredom, sadness, comparing yourself to others, or even those irresistible promotions. Second, by creating conscious barriers, such as leaving your credit card at home, planning your purchases, or setting clear limits. Third, by replacing the fleeting pleasure of consumption with more lasting joys, such as experiences, learning, and achievements. And now, I want to invite you to think, what kind of financial and emotional legacy do you want to leave for the next years of your life? To keep repeating the cycle of purchases and debts, or to build a solid path of prosperity with intelligent choices and freedom? At 40 years old or more, every decision counts. It's not about giving up everything, but about giving your money a new meaning. Remember, the brain can be trained. Just as we learn a new language or a new skill, we can re-educate our spending patterns and transform our relationship with money. In summary, overspending activates areas of the brain that seek immediate pleasure, but it causes deep financial, emotional, and relational damage. By understanding this mechanism, you gain the power to choose consciously. And by choosing wisely, you open the way to true prosperity. Prosperity that is not measured in things, but in freedom, peace, and fulfillment. So the next time you feel the urge to buy something on impulse, stop and reflect. Does this bring me closer to, or further from, the prosperous life I want to build? That simple question may be the very first step to unlocking your financial mindset and transforming your story once and for all. If this content resonated with you, take the next step. Check out the link I left below in the comments. And if this message helped you, give it a like, share it, leave your comment, and don't forget to subscribe with the bell on.